How we doing, everybody? This is Let's Be Real Brad, and today I'll be talking about the new horror thriller film that is distributed by Netflix. It is one of the top 10 streaming movies out right now when recording His House. Before I start getting on with this review, please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. It means the world to me. You guys are liking my videos. Subscribe to the channel. You guys are the best. His House is directed by Remi Weekes in his directorial debut, and it stars Wunmi Mosaku and Tope Dersou. And this is probably one of my favorites of the entire year. This is easily probably the best horror movie of the year so far, and I don't know if any other movie is going to top that, as this movie is somewhat of a different horror thriller film that I was expecting. I think the reason why is because this movie feels like a very mature, dramatic, and very deep film that isn't necessarily centered on its horror and thriller elements. This movie doesn't have that stereotypical and structurally built horror film that does happen in more the beginning of the film, just to keep the audience in, just to know what kind of movie it is. But the movie truly isn't about that, and I think that is probably the best asset of this movie. Performances here are absolutely fantastic by Mosaku and Dersou, as they are truly tremendous in the movie. They are truly giving fantastic performances. Their chemistry together is genuinely so perfect, and they do carry every scene of this movie. I thought they were perfect casting choices, and they delivered every single time, especially in the more emotional, dramatic sequences. Writing is absolutely so great in this movie. I feel as though that this movie doesn't have like almost any exposition in this movie. It's always implied exposition. And what I mean by that is there's so many times in this movie that they make mention of something in the past, something that we may not know as the audience, to keep us intrigued to see if that piece of information will be explored later in the film. And that is always my favorite kind of exposition. The movie has a nice progression throughout, and there are times in this movie that they don't flat out say what they're feeling. Most of this movie is truly based on the body language of these characters. The direction by Remi Weekes is fantastic in this movie. I mean, this is going to be a big stardom, as I think so many of the best scares and thrills of the whole year come strictly from this movie. There are some terrifying and awesome scary moments that are filled with this movie, as it is shot so perfectly well, and there's so much tension and suspension in this movie, and that is really due to some great and amazing direction. This movie had me on edge almost the entire time throughout. I love and enjoy the story themes that this movie presents about how we are trying to adapt into a society, or the guilt and regret that we faced in our everyday lives, and that the true horror doesn't rely from ghosts or goblins or monsters. It's the ones that we create in our own heads, and the ones that may be real and that do come from us, that supernatural element. Those are all things that are combined into this movie. The movie has real horror. Don't want to get into specifically why that is, but I just love that the movie sets it up right away, that if you're someone who does really pay attention and knows what this movie is going for, you will see that it craftily and creatively creates so many of these amazing horror sequences, but the real horror is truly intertwined into the story itself, and the last scenes of the film really showcase those elements. And I can just think of the last couple images that are shown in this movie that brought it all home to me of what this movie is about. So many dreamlike and creative sequences in this movie that I was not expecting. They do some really awesome imagery that is shown through this movie, and oftentimes you don't know what is real and what is not. And I think Remi Weekes is showing that that is not the main point of the movie, and the main point of the movie is that implied real true horror that people truly face. The only negatives that I have to give for this movie is simply that there is an element of this movie, a little bit of a theme that I was talking about earlier, that acceptance, that adaptation to society, and they do such an amazing job with it. But then it just goes away by the second half of the movie, as the second half definitely becomes a completely different movie. And I know that's going to shock and kind of defer audiences because the tone is much different and it doesn't even feel like a horror movie at times. And so then the movie kind of comes back as a horror movie. And so those scenes don't necessarily work for me when it tries to just come back as a horror movie. And they're okay, but it's just not as good as what everything was leading up to it at that point. This is a fantastic film that has incredible performances, and this one that I want to just go and watch again and study what works so well, and maybe do an analysis review one day. Who knows? But this is a movie that you need to have your thoughts to yourself, and I don't want to explain anymore. So I'm going to give this movie a strong 8 out of 10. So let me know, guys, have you guys seen His House? Are you guys planning on watching it? I think you guys should. Let me know down below in the comments. And as always, see you guys next video.